Today on 101 Sports,
we break down the latest NBA trade,
discuss possible locations for MLS Expansion,
and how sports have changed since the Battle of the Sexes.
All that and so much more.
And it all starts right now.
Hello and welcome to this episode of 101 Sports. I'm Ellie Whittington.
And I'm Thomas Hale. Much has happened in the world of sports since we saw you last, so Ellie and I are going to jump right into the quick hitters. Political turmoil has rooted itself in the world of sports and become the top story this week. The NBA champion Golden State Warriors had their White House invitation rescinded shortly after the Stanley Cup champion Pittsburgh Penguins announced that they would be going to the White House to celebrate their championship. President Trump also denounced NFL players for kneeling during the national anthem, and the league and its owners fired back at the White House in support of their players. In an attempt to show solidarity with their teammates, 3 NFL teams stayed off the field for the national anthem. Sports and politics are no longer in separate worlds. Athletes are taking stances on social issues and moving national debates. So, Ellie, how will the sports world deal with this? And I think that before we get into this, it's important to say that there's a lot of sides to this controversy that's going on, and it's important to respect everyone's opinions because that's how we come to an understanding. We want to talk about all these different views. No one side is more right than the other one, so let's get into it. Let's talk about the protests first.
I would agree, Thomas, that I think it's important to have a discussion about this. Going to the NFL, a lot has happened in sport. Let's just say that since the last time we've met.
It's a whirlwind.
It's crazy. With the NFL, I think that in sports in general, I'll say this much, that we've had this debate for many, many years that there should be a difference in church and state, meaning that the religious beliefs should not interact with government beliefs. And I think the same thing for sport. People go to sporting events to enjoy themselves.
They want to distract themselves from these problems.
And we're combining our two worlds, and I think there should be a separation. Now, that might not be realistic, but...
Yeah, so at the beginning, I mean, these things kind of kicked off with Colin Kaepernick last year. We saw that, and in the beginning, it was kneeling to protest racial injustice. A lot of people from the other side feel that it's a disrespect to our military, disrespect to our country to be kneeling during so. And we saw that players were in the locker rooms a few years ago. Really, players were out on the field during the national anthem starting 2009, I believe.
Right, that's something I also want to discuss is that it wasn't until the last few years that actually the NFL has brought the national anthem. A lot of players, they always stayed in the locker room until after 9/11. Some players decided they wanted to be out on the field. And then in 2009, it was required that you be on the field for the national anthem. So this is kind of a new thing.
And do you think that, I mean, what do you think so far? Like, it kind of comes to a point where we get to the questions, where does sports go from here? And a big question that may be posed in the future is, what do we do about the national anthem before games? Because sports is really one of the only places that we sing the national anthem before the event. When you go to a concert with 20, 40,000 people, we don't sing the national anthem, but ever since we're in elementary school, middle school, high school, we're up there singing the national anthem before our games. Right.
I do want to say, as far as the political view goes, that the national anthem stands for our country, and it stands for liberty and justice for all.
It's important.
And I think it is very important that we realize that the national anthem does not stand for our president.
Absolutely.
It stands as us as a country, and we need to come together as a country as a whole for life, liberty, and justice for every person.
Yeah, and I think that one thing to understand is that everyone is protesting for the country as a whole.
Yes.
Which is kind of getting marred in everything that's been talked about lately, but I think that we can all agree that everyone wants better for our country, and that's why these protests are happening, which is good.
I also agree that I was watching a CNN interview, as a man on the street with different people after the Steelers game, which is the Steelers were one of the teams that's decided to stay in the locker room.
Right.
Of course, one of their players, Villanueva, excuse me, decided to stand outside the locker room, and they were interviewing fans, and some were very passionate on both sides of the both stances, as I've mentioned before, and there were some fans that didn't want to be on camera, and they said, "Look, I'm coming on a Sunday to a football game. I don't want to talk about politics," and that's kind of my stance on it. But it's what's going on in the country right now, and we are talking about politics.
So maybe another thing that could be talked about in the future. We talked about the anthem. Now let's talk about the Penguins going to the White House and the Warriors not going to the White House. Do you think that it might be necessary to go to the White House for the champions? Do you think that that's a big deal?
This is how I kind of take the whole situation. Have you ever been invited to like a really awkward date or like a birthday party? Let's say a birthday party to celebrate something.
Absolutely.
And maybe you really don't want to go celebrate, but you're invited anyway.
Right.
You have the option not to go.
Yeah. At the end. You just put it pretty easily right there.
Yeah, I mean, you have the, you can go or you cannot go. It's an invitation.
Right. And I think that what's been going on is that a lot of teams have been trying to point out that they're not trying to be political by not going or something like that. They're really not. But by not stating what their actual intentions are, a lot of people start to get these thoughts in their head and they start to think, well, what is the true reason for them not going? And that's kind of what a lot of the argument is shaped around with this. And so I wonder is it really important to have these teams going to the White House, which I do understand that it's a great honor to meet the president. It's a great honor to be at the forefront, at the capital of our country after winning the national championship.
And Thomas, I want to say as well, obviously it's very known, Steph Curry's point, and many other players' point have been stepping out recently. In my opinion, if you are a figure at that level, go to the White House and tell the president, no matter who that is, what you think of what's going on right now.
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of what it's coming down to with all the protests that are happening is that for so long, sport and politics have been separated and players have kept out of it. The last time that we really saw this was back when Muhammad Ali was very active in the 60s.
Correct.
And so now it kind of gets to a point where there's so much going on in the political climate of our country that players just can't keep quiet anymore. And they feel like they need to use this as a platform to take their stand. So, I mean, I think it gets to a point where we're always going to be having political in sports from here on out.
Do you think that there's a difference in, celebrities during the last election really took their stance because of that public platform? Do you think there's a difference in a celebrity and an athlete?
Absolutely, and it's because teams are private entities and players, at the end of the day, the owners do have a right to tell a player that they can't kneel because it's a private entity. If a player isn't reflecting the values of their company, of their team, then the owner has a right to tell them, look, we don't like what you're doing, you might need to stop. Obviously, that's not what happened. The owner stood in solidarity with the players, which was excellent to see, by the way. Really great to see. But they do have the right to do that if they want to, and you see it in NASCAR
That's what I was going to go to, is going to NASCAR. They're actually, you share the thoughts of NASCAR right now.
Well, in NASCAR right now, we see that the owners came out and said that they will be firing the people. So we've got a lot going on. I mean, two completely different sides and a lot of different sports are handling this situation different ways. Yeah. But that's all the time we have for the quick hitters. Don't go anywhere because our NBA experts will be joining me to break down the latest NBA trade. Knicks fans rejoice. Carmelo Anthony is out of New York and is joining forces with Russell Westbrook and Paul George in Oklahoma City. With now 3 teams with a big 3 on their roster, which one will emerge as the best in the West? I'm joined by Don Vernazza and Brad Clear to sort it all out. So guys, a lot of people were starting to think that this was going to be a quick 1-year pit stop for Paul George on his way to an eventual move to the Los Angeles Lakers. Now that Melo's here, do you think that changes? Dom, what do you think?
I'm not saying he's definitely going to leave, but I don't think Melo really changes it much. Yeah. Paul George is looking where he's going to spend the next 4 or 5 years of his career. Melo is 34. He's clearly on the downside. Financially, it's going to be tough to keep him after his contract expires. I think if Paul George is looking at this move, it's great for this year. It's going to make the team better, but I don't think he cares that much about playing with a 35, 36-year-old Melo.
I think at this point, it doesn't necessarily make a drastic difference, as you said, but I think it does improve the odds of him staying. Carmelo's got a $28 million player option for next year. He's not turning that down.
No, he's keeping it.
The possibility of having those 3 together again next year, another good team in the West. So if he went to the Lakers, it would be harder for them to get to the top tier of the West.
George is going to be committing 5 years to the Thunder, then, Melo's only going to be there for maybe 2.
I'm not saying it's likely, but I think it increases the odds.
I think it really has no impact.
Okay. Well, we've got a new big 3 in the West, as we can see. Yeah. How do we think that the power struggle is going to be? You got dominant guys like Paul George, Russell Westbrook. Carmelo Anthony loves getting the ball. Do you think that these guys are going to be able to mesh together well, Brad?
I do. I think you take Russell Westbrook, the ball-dominant, pounding the ball point guard who's going to get his shot at will. Paul George is a superstar, and you're going to be making his role a 3-and-D. You have a superstar in a 3-and-D role. Carmelo is a stretch 4 shooter.
Is he going to take that? He's been the number 1 option his whole time. He's been an Olympic athlete. I don't think he's going to like being the 3rd option behind.
Paul George
like you said,
he's going to be the Carmelo or Paul George being the 3rd
Paul
option?
George.
He's going to be the 2nd option.
Then I don't think Melo's going to like being 3.
But then you're taking a guy of such incredible skill and you're putting them in such a role that's so small as a stretch forward who can shoot, that's an incredible player to have in such a small
But then
role.
if you're putting, really all Melo does is get buckets. Let's be honest, his game's not well-rounded. He doesn't play defense. He's not a rebounder.
And he's becoming more and more of a three-point shooter.
He's a solid three-point shooter, but if all he's doing is occasionally spotting up in the corner, then he's not really providing you that much at all.
Would you rather have him be taking those shots, or would you rather have, say,
Andre Roberson?
Yes, Andre who can't even shoot. Andre Roberson.
I mean, I admit he's
Jeremy
a talent upgrade. I just worry about how these three are going to, interact together. Last year, they combined to have a usage rate of 98%. I mean, these are ball chuckers. Melo, his entire career, has been a chucker. He hasn't really liked when other people kind of infringe on a superstar.
I think with the two in Paul George and Carmelo, they want to win. Russell Westbrook wants to win. You put superstar players in smaller roles, they're going to thrive to an unbelievable extent.
I don't think Melo's game is good for other superstars because he's a chucker. He doesn't pass.
All right, well, hey, guys, as we can see, we've got another star from the East moving to the West. What seed do you think OKC is going to get?
I'm going to be the 4 seed. You figure last year they won 47 games. They were about 8 games behind Houston. They were, 14 behind San Antonio. I think San Antonio's going to be as good. They retain.
Really?
They're bringing pretty much everyone back. Hey, I can't count out the Spurs. I can't count out the Spurs.
I'm going to go 3. I think Houston's number 2. I think we both agree on that.
Yeah.
I think San Antonio, they're sort of at that complacent level where they're sort of declining a little bit if they don't add another marquee free
That's what they say every year.
I think this is that year truly.
I've been hearing that for 10 years.
But with the competition that's been added that's going to be above them, I think OKC has surpassed them on a talent level, and I think.
Well, I think the other thing with OKC is, yes, they won 47 games, but they're really the point differential of a 43-win team. They got a few crazy shots by Westbrook. Those regress to the mean.
And you're adding 2 superstars to that team.
Melo's not
you
a
have
superstar.
versatile defenders in Jeremy.
I think you
Grant,
add
who
at
can
least
play
10
that
wins.
spot.
I think the Spurs just pass them.
We've got a lot of great competition to look forward to in the NBA. A lot of great competition. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this segment. Now, let's trade live sports for virtual ones as Ellie sits down with Andrew and Chris to discuss the best sports video games since 2000.
All right, I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Okay. She's gonna love me all over again. Now,
Jamaica, here you come.
here we go.
Good job.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww. You should pick that up.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how. Teach your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
I don't know what's happening. Start a new chat. What did I do? Okay. Wow. That is so weird.
Hey! Hi!
Oh my gosh. Hi! God, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm so nervous. Gia, you're so big. Come closer to the camera. Wait, now you're in my face. That was so good.
NBA video game hit the shelves this week, and some of us here at 101 are excited to play the newest version. But as usual, the game sparked a heated debate about the best sports-related video games of all time. I would now like to welcome into the studio our resident gaming experts who will shed some light on their opinions on the best video games since the year 2000. So we'll start with the best from the first decade. 2K obviously stands for 2000, so it came out in 1999. Let's talk about which one is the best from the years 2000 to 2010. Chris, what do you think?
I'm going to go around 2004, 2003, NBA Street Volume 2. Because essentially it's just straight up 3-on-3 basketball with all the favorite superstars, Michael Jordan, Bill Russell, Larry Bird, Dominique Wilkins, plus all those players that just came in the '03 draft. And what makes it even more important to me is the hip-hop element that was a part of it. You had Nelly, you had MC Styles, you had Black Sheep, kind of like bring that all together, being a part of that new era of music. Keep in mind, Outkast are coming up in this era as well. So it's kind of like.
Are you talking about Guitar Hero or NBA?
No, I'm talking about basketball, because hip-hop and basketball and R&B, they correlate together. So it actually like worked well with each other. So that's one of my favorites.
Well, you come from the court and I'm coming from the squared circle. I'm talking about WWE. Here Comes the Pain. Also 2003. So that must have been a great year for video
that was a good
games.
game.
And I'm talking as a wrestling fan, this game was everything. I mean, I got off the school bus and I just hopped downstairs and I started throwing this bad boy on. If I was ticked off that I got a bad grade on something, I just unleash it. You had Brock Lesnar on the come up, The Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock. You could even play as like the referee sometimes. And Kane. One thing I loved about the game is that you could take it anywhere. It didn't have to be the ring. You could take it backstage. You could take it onto the street. And it's so ahead of its time for 2003 and its ability to just take the game anywhere and be just a palatable wrestling game.
Yeah, pretty much set the precedent of what WWE games are right now, because 2K has the rights to those. Like literally WWE
It's
18
even better than the 2K games right now. WWE Here Comes the Pain has set the precedent for not only WWE video games, but interaction between sports and virtual reality and first-person games.
I'm going to say in 2003, I was in the first grade, I think. So let's move on to a little bit more recent time. What is the best video game in the second decade? We're going from 2010 to around now.
Well, I'm going to go with the most recent one before NBA 2K18, NBA 2K17. And before this past game, it had the smoothest game engine, I think, out of any sports game at least, and I'm talking about FIFA as well. I know it's a heated debate, but the career mode was amazing in 2K17, and the one in 18, I played it a little bit. It's kind of trashy, and that's where you get the line between what's good as a first-person game or not. And my team is always on the come up. You're able to draft any player you want, sign them to a contract. You can have LeBron James and the newly signed Dwayne Wade and Melo all on the same team, and it's very addictive. It's one of the few games that I'll actually spend more money on.
2K17 was a great game. I wish that they actually had Hoodie Melo on that roster,
don't we all?
because Hoodie Melo will probably win the championship. Hoodie Melo for the win. But anyway, to me, I want to go back a little bit. I want to stay with the 2K theme. I want to go with 2K11 because it kind of set the precedent of what you're talking about, what 2K17 did. You have the Jordan Challenge where you can literally play as Michael Jordan doing all these different kinds of challenges. Plus, my player was like on the come up, like basically you're part of like a draft combine, and you literally are earning your way. You're earning your spot on the way. You like it's not really much given to you because that's my one little niche about 2K17. You can always like buy like credit and stuff, and you can really just speed your way through the process.
Well, you mentioned the Jordan Challenge, but on top of that, you also have, stemming from that, the all teams. You have the all-time teams you can play as the classic Celtics, Bulls, and Lakers all in one game.
And that was the first time they actually did that. So that kind of set that precedent. Now, you look at 2K17 and 2K18, they're like all-time teams for like pretty much every franchise.
Well, you guys enjoy playing your video games this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Now that we spent enough time procrastinating on our homework with video games, I think it's time to go back to procrastinating with our favorite sports. When we come back, our MLS expert, Matt Hosoffel, who did his homework this week, tells us about the best cities for MLS expansion.
With soccer growing rapidly in the United States, MLS hopes to be one of the top leagues in the world by 2022. One of the plans in order to reach this goal is to continue to expand, with 2 new expansion clubs expected to be announced this year. With many markets in consideration, I'm joined at the desk by Matt Hosoffel to discuss where we might see MLS go next. So Matt, we've got expansion teams coming. What 2 cities are most likely to get expansion teams by 2020?
Right. My first team was Phoenix Rising FC, obviously in Arizona, and Arizona doesn't have a team yet.
Great name, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Phoenix Rising, and really, fits us with Elon. But they are selling out every match in the USL, the United Soccer League, and that's a big draw for Commissioner Don Garber. Also, they're agreeing on a stadium plan right now. They've already made, they're talking about not having a dome because that was a big deal apparently. So Don Garber was like, you know what, you don't have to have a dome. You can, build any kind of stadium you want. So he expects them to have a stadium plan done soon.
Very nice.
And then,
And what was your other team?
Go forward with that. And the other one's Cincinnati.
Okay.
Again, they have the same stadium issue. Like I said, Don Garber expects them to have the stadium done by the end of the year.
Gotcha.
Which should put them, right in line to have a team.
Very nice.
Within,
so they're in motion.
Yeah.
They're in motion. Okay. So how about in the future, what cities that aren't being considered right now should be considered?
And I love this one. I picked Las Vegas.
Nice.
Because, first of all, Las Vegas, they're getting an NFL team as soon as 2019 with the Raiders. They just got an NHL team. And soccer is the most bet-on sport in the entire world. So it begs the question, why is MLS not even considering that yet?
They sound like they're getting a field. They've got the venue, they've got the crowd for it, so why not do it?
They've got, it right there, maybe even close to the Strip. I think it's a huge draw. And the other team was New Orleans.
Ooh.
Not for any specific soccer reason, but they got Who Dat Nation. The Pelicans are getting better. They're like an up-and-coming, not really up-and-coming.
New Orleans is also just a fun-loving city.
Exactly, they love
those
their
guys know how
sports.
to have fun, and they would definitely go out to support
It's
them.
a great atmosphere too.
Absolutely.
So I think it'd be great for a team there.
So where do we think the MLS is going from here?
So Don Garber, the commissioner of MLS, said he wanted the MLS to be a top-flight tier league by 2020. And obviously adding teams and getting new stadiums is part of that.
Yeah.
They want to be around where the Premier League is, where La Liga is. I don't see why not. If they add teams, if they get new stadiums, they bring in more revenue, I don't see why they can't be a top-tier team.
I just don't know if I can see that, buddy. It's just because with the player development that happens in the USA, it's just we don't get a lot of those top-tier players, and by the time we do get them, they're on their way out. They're trying to retire. A lot of guys like to come after like they're 32.
It's a two-tier. It's players, it's also the fans. The fans need to get more into it in the U.S. I think they're slowly getting there, but I think we can get there eventually.
It takes a little bit of time. As we know, they're growing, and I do agree that in the future, we've got a good thing coming for us. I think so. That's all the time we have to talk about the future of U.S. soccer. Now, we're going to go back to the past. Ellie hits the lounge to talk about the impact of the Battle of the Sexes.
I'm one unlucky guy. The chance of being involved in a robbery is 1 in 757. The chances of being struck by lightning. 1 in 750,000.
Please fasten your seatbelts for unexpected turbulence.
The chances of being a victim in an airline crash? 1 in 29 million. Hey, could I get some peanuts? The chances of being involved in a car crash are far greater than lightning strikes and plane crashes. And if you are texting while driving, your risk of crash increases 23 times. Now, I may be an unlucky guy, but I don't have to be part of that statistic, and neither do you. Drive responsibly.
RBIs and 36 homers. Swings at the first pitch and fouls it deep back into the stands.
Chill raw and prepared foods promptly. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Danse, balance la cadence, ondule bien tes hanches, au bal du dimanche.
You didn't give up on sex. Don't give up on birth control either. There are more methods than you think. Find yours at bedsider.org.
That's low. That's low and below the top. Seriously.
It's no fairy tale that the right fit means everything, especially when it comes to car seats. Always choose one that's the right fit for your child's age and size.
That does make a difference.
To find out more, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat.
It has been 44 years since Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs faced off in the Battle of the Sexes. I am now joined in the lounge by our experts Ginny Berman, Mason Stoff, and Sophie Zavada, as they discuss how sports have changed since that day. So I'm going to start with you, Sophie. Does the Battle of the Sexes get enough credit or recognition?
I think it gets the credit it deserves. You know, without Battle of the Sexes, without Billie Jean King, you know, a lot of this stuff wouldn't happen. It sort of served as the catalyst for this movement to equate females in sport with males in sport. And I think that's something that's really important. And without that event happening, I don't think we could even still be waiting for an event of that magnitude to happen now to get us to the point that we are today.
It was important, I will give you that, but I think the catalyst for the movement was the year before with Title IX, which people still don't seem to really understand.
Because it wasn't as hyped up by the media. I think a huge part of this was that the media covered it and the media hyped it up, and it brought a lot of attention to people that wouldn't otherwise pay attention to the sports world.
See, my problem is that that's all it was media hype. I mean, to an extent, it wasn't exactly a fair fight, so to speak. Bobby Riggs was in her prime.
50,
it was
52, 55
yeah,
or something?
It was someone in her prime against somebody who was retired for years. And now we're talking about saying that that's supposed to be a fair fight. I think it gets too much credit, honestly. The fact of the matter is, like what Mason said, that Title IX was the real catalyst. And at the end of the day, all the other Battle of the Sexes that happened didn't have the same results. So this one only gets popular because it was the result people were looking for.
Like, I think a huge part of it, I totally understand where you're coming from, and I get that. But the thing is, a lot of these events that we're talking about didn't get the same coverage, and people weren't talking about it to the same extent and still talking about it to this day 44 years later.
It's because King won. There have been 4 Battle of Sexes. That was the second one. It was only really hyped because she won, but because of the age difference, it wasn't a fair fight.
And while it might not have been a fair fight, she still won and still brought attention to this, discrepancy between men and females in sports.
So what are you guys thinking, sorry to cut you off, Jenny, but what are you guys thinking, it's so big today, and there's this movie coming out, correct?
Yeah.
So what do you think this means to sports today?
Today, I think it's just kind of a symbol. I agree with you that because of the media attention that it can still be used as a symbol, and it's trying now 40 years later to give the modern generation kind of a look at what this was. And they're treating it a little bit like a drama, a little bit like a comedy. That's why you have Emma Stone and Steve Carell playing the roles.
Yeah,
it's not a sports drama. It's a comedy drama. So I think it's trying to make something that was important. I'll give you that it was important. And just kind of introduce it to modern audiences.
Yeah, and I think it's bringing this issue back to like 44 years later when, a lot of things have gotten better, but at the same time, there is so much more for us to be done. And I think it's sort of resurging this movement and focusing it more on, okay, well, this happened 44 years ago, and this is where we still are today. And there's still a lot of issues between male and female in sport.
I just think, to me, the real question is, the movie didn't even really consult Billie Jean King about it, and to me, what Battle of the Sexes did more than anything else was establish Billie Jean King as a leader in women's sports as part of the movement for equality. But there are people who really did more actual work. Serena Williams in getting equal pay as far as prize money for the tennis tours, as well as, you could even say that the 1999 Women's World Cup team did more for women's sports as far as putting it out in the forefront.
Real quick question for each of you, really fast. What do we expect another Battle of the Sexes today? Anytime soon?
No.
No, I don't think there's anybody that can fill that gap that there was before.
I don't think, as a man, I don't think that a lot of men would be willing to do it.
Interesting.
It's appalling, but I think that's the reason why.
Well, thanks guys so much for your opinions. Well, that's all we have for this vlog, but now we don't go anywhere because Thomas and I will be joined at the desk next to discuss a recent historical moment in Major League Baseball.
On Saturday, John Farrell and his son Luke made Major League Baseball history when the Red Sox faced off against the Reds. According to MLB, this is the first time in history where this happened. In a sport that has had their fair share of great moments, Ellie, is this the best moment in the MLB this season?
Wow, lots of great things have happened this year.
Yeah.
I think this is an incredible moment. It doesn't compare to a lot of, it's not a statistical baseball moment.
It's not a heartwarming
It's a heartwarming story. And I think it's incredible that, the son is playing. He pitched a wonderful inning, and his dad just gave him a nice tip of the hat. And it was a respectful,
it was
an awesome time.
It's one of those nice little clips you see on Facebook. You're like, oh, that's nice.
Oh, this is Facebook.
Yeah, you like those. I'm going to say, though, that after this weekend, though, we had a new rookie record broken.
Yes.
Aaron Judge.
That is correct.
Broke the rookie home run record. He's got 50 now, I believe. And it's just like, when you see him, a new guy coming in, breaking records like that, hitting 50 home runs his rookie year, it makes you excited for the future of baseball.
I'm very excited for the Yankees, and I think that things are going extremely well for them right now. So I just don't think that these are comparable.
Yeah.
Because
one's statistical and one's
this weekend there were teams that clinched a postseason berth.
Yeah.
And this is just something different. I think they're both incredible things, but they're not comparable.
Yeah.
The Reds aren't playing so well.
That's true.
So this is a good
they needed
moment.
A story
this
like
is a good
honestly,
moment. This is something that catches media attention, and this is a good moment for the Reds. and the Red Sox combined. So though I'm very excited for Aaron Judge and what happened, it's not a comparable story.
Nice story for baseball, though.
Nice, yes, and things are, this is the most exciting time in baseball season right now.
Oh, it's about to be October, right?
We're getting very excited for October. We'll be talking about it in a few weeks, I'm sure.
All right, for sure.
Sounds good. That's all the time we have for this episode of One-on-One Sports.
Huge thanks to the producers, crew, and talent here on the show, and you, the viewer, for tuning in.
If you missed anything, please make sure to check us out on social media on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, all at One-on-One Sports. From all of us here at the show, thanks for watching, and as always,
whose side are you on?